Squeaky Benjamin is at it again. So we covered some of his comments on our last show. He said that striking workers are just as bad as price gougers. And you had some workers who were protesting for protective gear because they didn't want to get coronavirus as they worked. You have workers who wanted what's called hazard pay. They wanted double pay during the crisis. And these are specifically for the industries that are currently thriving. There are some industries, while the rest of the economy is imploding, there's some very few select industries who are expanding, and the people who are striking happen to be in those industries that are expanding. So anyway, I think it's perfectly reasonable. I think even if Ben Shapiro were to say, no, don't be ridiculous. It's hard to run a business. And if you workers think you can handle this all on your own, then fine, by all means, you run your own business. Yeah, exactly. That's totally fine. That would be what's called a worker-owned co-op. That would be democracy in the workplace. And my guess is, if you did have democracy in the workplace, the workers would by definition be a lot happier because the decisions are made democratically. So if they had the money and they could afford it, which they can, the double pay, everybody would get their double pay, everybody would get their protective gear. So yeah, he's ridiculous in thinking that like, man, the only reason these workers are protesting in these conditions is because they're so piggy and selfish and greedy. Really? That's who you think is piggy and selfish and greedy. Not, for example, the people on the manager level and, the executive level at Amazon who were forcing people to work in a factory where somebody had contracted the virus. They're not piggy. They're not the problem. It's the workers who want to make sure they don't catch the virus, and the workers who just want to be appreciated a little more during a time of crisis. I know, Ben, I know. He's a ridiculous person. Anyway, I digress from that. That was the last segment that we did. But Ben Shapiro's not done taking shots at people over the virus and the various solutions that are being implemented and proposed. Take a look.
Hey, Julian Castro, former failed presidential candidate, he says we have an affordable housing problem in the United States. Like, seriously, that's where you're going with all of this, is affordable housing? We're trying to fight a global pandemic right now. You might want to put your Marxist back burner ideas on back burner.
One of the things that this coronavirus has revealed is just how close so many million American families are to poverty. And one of the things that I think we need to focus on more is that we need to be bolder when it comes to housing assistance to make sure that people can stay in the apartment or the home that they're living in. So we need to be addressing this right now for the coronavirus period or crisis that we're in. But also, it has demonstrated the long-term problem that we have when it comes to housing affordability out there.
Okay, come on. Like, your side projects don't matter. By the way, neither does President Trump's $2 trillion call for infrastructure spending. Sorry, we're too busy destroying the entire future of the American federal budget. Or we're going to do that over here. So if you want to add like another $2 trillion on top of that to fill potholes, I'm going to go no on that.
Oh, man. He is so incredible in that he's seemingly wrong about everything. All right, so let me walk you through this. When he goes after Julian Castro, I can't believe I'm about to defend Julian Castro. But when he goes after Julian Castro, Castro's calling for affordable housing because, Ben, I don't know if you know this, homeless people can get the virus. Homeless people can spread the virus among each other, putting their lives at risk. Those lives have value. I know you think they don't, but they have value. But beyond that, even if you're inclined to say they don't count because they're homeless and I'm Ben Shapiro, they also can spread the virus among all Americans. Because when you have people who are perpetually out on the street during a national lockdown, that tends to have the opposite of the effect that we want. Namely, continued spreading of the virus. So the fact that he wasn't able to put two and two together, the fact that he wasn't able to understand that what Julian Castro is talking about is absolutely linked to the pandemic, just shows that he's not that bright. Either that, or he understands, but he doesn't care because they're homeless people, so in his mind, they don't count, they're super irrelevant, and who cares what happens to them. But like I just explained to you, with homeless people having it, they also could spread it to people with homes. So even if he wants to have that terrible genocidal mindset about how homeless people are irrelevant and don't matter, he's still wrong. It's unbelievable. And then the point about infrastructure, oh my God. So now, I just defended Julian Castro, now I got to defend Trump. The reason why Donald Trump would float something like an infrastructure deal right now, The reason why he would do that is because the numbers look like we're about to hit a Great Depression. When you have 3.1 million people file for unemployment 1 week, and then the next week it's 6.6 million people. The old record was less than 700,000 in 1 week. And then in a 2-week span, we have 9 to 10 million people file for unemployment. We have no outs. The government has no outs. That's why they did the bailout bill. Now, the terms of the bill were terrible, and they needed to drastically and radically change from what they did because they just handed money over to corporations. But is an infrastructure bill a great idea? Yes, absolutely. One of the things that helped us get out of the Great Depression was the New Deal. That was an infrastructure project. That was a jobs program. That's exactly what Trump is talking about when he floats that. Now, I'm sure I'll disagree with the terms that they draft in a bill that has infrastructure spending in it. And I'm sure Trump will, a lot of people in Trump's own party will say no to that. But look at the mindset, man. Look at the mindset. He thinks it's just filling some potholes. Hey, you want to waste trillions of dollars just filling some potholes? Of all the money that's been spent so far, that's what you're taking issue with? You're going to fill some potholes? Come on, you're going to spend trillions just filling some potholes? Our infrastructure gets a grade of D+. As you guys know, because I reference it all the time, the Society of Civil Engineers releases a report every couple of years, and our infrastructure gets a grade of D+. It's abysmal. It's abysmal. Our airports, our roads, our bridges, everything is crumbling. The last time it had a major update was during the Great Depression. So yes, addressing that, fixing that, getting Americans back to work when the time is right with those kinds of projects, that makes all the sense in the world. That's the most reasonable thing Trump has said throughout this entire pandemic. But of course, the fiscal conservatives have to, rush in. I don't know, it seems to cost a lot of money. I'm not sure that that's a good idea because we shouldn't really be spending money like that. Really? Well, the overwhelming majority of economists agree that in a time of crisis, that's exactly what you want to happen. It's exactly what you want to happen. The government needs to be the spender of last resort. If the government isn't, you exacerbate the crisis. But he would rather exacerbate the crisis because, we got to watch out for the deficit and the debts. That's what we got to do. Except we have a sovereign currency. So a deficit or debt in and of itself is not a negative thing. It's only bad insofar as it leads to inflation. If we get to the point where we start getting inflation, serious inflation, well, then we agree. And you take your foot off the gas pedal a little bit and you don't do as much deficit spending. But we're not at that point yet. And we need to create jobs. We need to do something to stimulate the economy. It's a very mainstream, straightforward economic view that during a downturn like this, that's exactly when you do something like an infrastructure deal. It's exactly when you do it. They should have done it in 2008 in a much stronger way. So he's wrong about everything. It's amazing how wrong he is about absolutely everything. So he would rather, and he also called affordable housing like a side pet issue. That doesn't, you're a political dude, Ben. That's not something that's high on your list. Like, should everybody in our society probably have a roof over their head? No, I don't like the way that sounds. Is that too radical for you, Ben? That everybody in a society have a roof over their heads? See, look at the mindset. The mindset is not like, let's try to fix problems. Let's try to, ameliorate social ills. The mindset is just like, smug, callous indifference. I mean, it's really stunning the degree to which it is that, because you're talking about a guy like Trump who's smug and callous and indifferent, and he's significantly less smug and callous and indifferent than this guy. At least he's floating the idea of let's do an infrastructure bill. Again, I'm sure that if they draft a bill like that, the terms will be horrendous. But look at Ben Shapiro's response. Dude, you're embarrassing.